Hey guys, let's talk about my book. My book is called ParanormalPI's Guide for Today's Spiritually Gifted Youth. There's going to be a link below, and it will be to my books page, and that way if you are curious about anything or you just want to be a part of that, you can go check it out. So I know that this is a topic that I keep meaning to do a blog on, and I don't know what's wrong with me. I did a short little vlog-esque thing where I kind of touched on what the book was and all that stuff, but I realized after watching it that really all I did was talk about the logistics of it, like the type of book it was and why it was taking so long, the legal stuff, all that crap. I didn't actually talk about the content aspect, which obviously is what people really want to know. So I figured it is time to do that now. Oh yeah, this is the whole book. 5 years it took me to make this little piece of paper. I'm just joking. Okay, so let's go into it. This is going to be one of a series of books. There's also going to be ParanormalPI's Guide for Today's Spiritually Gifted Young Adult, and then the guide for parents of gifted youth. So with those three, there's also going to be a journal collection that goes with the series. There's going to be, I'm still working on the names, so they're not set in stone right now, but there's going to be a dream journal of sorts, and that's where you document, all the dreams, not all your dreams, but the dreams that feel important. If you ever had a dream that was, as a gifted person, we get dreams that feel more vivid, they feel more real. When we wake up, we could just feel they were different than a normal dream. Sometimes they follow us all day, sometimes weeks. Those type of dreams you want to log, and sometimes they play out weeks, months, days, years later, and it's nice to have a point of reference for those. There will also be a encounters log, journal type thing, where you actually document the physical encounters you have, or your moments where you have gifts, like, oh my god, I just predicted that was crazy, or oh, I had this vision and it freaked me out, or oh, I actually saw a spirit or heard a spirit, or whatever the case is. Then you would document those in that experience log, journal, whatever. And then there's going to be a drawing log, journal, whatever. That's primarily for the young kids, but honestly it's for anybody. I know when my daughter was younger, she not only loved to draw, but it was a lot easier for her to communicate what she was seeing and hearing and feeling by drawing the pictures as opposed to expressing them. And for some of us, drawing is an outlet for us to just kind of vent and express ourselves, and for some of us it's the only way to communicate if we're not yet talking. And sometimes there's just details on spirits that are much easier to physically show, and so that book is going to be mostly just drawing. It could be for feelings and stuff when you have experiences, but mostly it's to draw the spirits that you encounter. And again, that is aimed more at the younger ones, but it can be used by anybody. And then there's just going to be your basic journal, your basic diary, whatever, that'll be part of the series. So the book is 8 chapters long, and then after the 8th chapter there is a thank you section, but we'll get into that at that point. I'm pretty much just going to break down chapter by chapter just so you guys can get a feel for what's coming. The first chapter is much different than the rest of the chapters, and the second chapter is slightly different than the rest of the chapters. The first and the second chapters, while are structured slightly different than the remaining chapters, they are very important as far as I'm concerned, and I think I did a good job of flowing and transitioning them into the rest of the book, even though they're structurally slightly different. So chapter 1 is pretty simple. It is my story. It's the Meet the Author chapter. It's my childhood, not just on a paranormal aspect, but everything that I went through, into teenage and adulthood up till now. Well, up till about a couple years ago, because I'm not going to keep updating it, obviously. There are a lot of reasons I did that chapter. With having so many different books in the series, I did feel it was important to at least give people an understanding of who was giving them all this information and where all this was coming from. Anybody can say, this is the information, learn it. I know what you're going through, just take it from me. I wanted some sort of for sure way of saying I've been there, I have experienced that, I've experienced the things beyond the paranormal that you're going through in terms of your family life and your social life and whatever. So when I'm telling you things and giving you when I'm giving you suggestions or ideas, it's from more of from an honest place, not just from an adult telling you what to do. Plus, I just really want you guys to get to know me a little bit, and maybe understand some of the way I think and the things that I do and don't do. Maybe you'll see that through the life I've lived. And so just taking our journeys together is exciting for me. So that is what the first chapter is for. Chapter 2 is called What Am I and Why? A History Lesson. And again, like I said, number 1 and number 2 are structured differently than the remaining part of the books, but they're still completely relevant and flow as well as possible. Chapter 1 obviously was just basically autobiography. Chapter 2, while a history lesson sounds very blah blah blah, I did my best to make sure that it wasn't like that. There are so many gifts and so many abilities and so many experiences that are common in the community. I'm sure there are dozens and dozens that I'm not aware of or that I'm not super familiar with. So obviously it does not encompass all abilities and gifts and experiences. But a lot of the major ones, clairvoyance, seeing, hearing, feeling spirits, premonitions, empathing, animal communication, telepathy, psychic moments, that type of stuff, astral projection, so on and so on. This goes into somewhat details. I mean, it's not like a tell-all. I don't know everything myself. But it gives you the basics of what the gift is, what the experience is, how it works, why it works, what to expect, that kind of stuff. And then there's also a great deal of information on gifted history, you know, especially things like the Salem witch trials. There's other content besides that, but the basic idea of how we were looked at for years and years and years and years, hundreds of years, and how blessed we are to be in this time and to have the resources available to us that we do without judgment or limited judgment. I know we're all judged in this community by somebody, but you know, not like we were. We're not hung or burned at the stake, taken to court, that kind of thing. So I thought that that was very important for you guys to understand, for the kids to understand, that while they're going through a lot, and they might get picked on at school or by their peers or by even their family members, and it's horrible, I will never take that away, it could have been worse. So that's just some perspective to have in this chapter. Chapter 3 is designed pretty much the same way as the remaining part of the book. It's slightly different because there's not so much information in this chapter, but it's pretty much the same vibe throughout the rest of the book. And this chapter 3 is called First Encounters. Again, there's not as much content in terms of information and tips in this chapter, but the basic idea is everyone's first encounters. You always remember your first experience in the paranormal world, whether it be seeing your first spirit or having your first weird dream or you're having your first premonition or whatever the case may be. As far as I know, most of us, I mean, some of us had them when we were really, really little and our parents tell us the story, but most of us remember our first experience. And it's important to see that other people not only had their first experiences, but the different ways that they handled it, the different ways their families handled it, the different types of things that they experienced. So the whole first first encounters chapter has my story and my information about my encounters, but mostly it's just your guys' stories and your guys' submissions and your guys' experiences. So it's a lot of fun, actually. Chapter 4 is called The 5 Stages of the Paranormal Experience, or of a Paranormal Experience. And it is funny because I never thought about it until I wrote the book. As I was writing the book, actually, I realized it. As the book grew, I really was like, oh my god, this is just like the 5 stages of grief. Like, I really never thought about it, but it is. And it became a really important part of my book and the content and the way I approached a lot of the book. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I will give you kind of the gist of it. So the first stage is shock. It's like, what just happened? Oh my god, what was that? You know, you're kind of freaked out at first. And sometimes you're freaked out all day, sometimes you're freaked out for a minute. It just depends on what happened to you. But it can definitely be a huge factor. Then denial. A lot of times we're like, no, I didn't just hear that. No, I didn't see that. No, it was just a dream. No, it was just my imagination. No, something must have moved. No, that was just a coincidence, right? We go into denial for a minute, sometimes longer. Then a lot of us go through bargaining. I did. I know. You'll read about it in the book. I went through a lot of bargaining. And that's when you're just over it. You don't understand your gifts. Other people don't understand your gifts. Sometimes you get a lot of flack for your gifts. You get a lot of negative feedback for your gifts, and you start to bargain. You contact God or whoever you go to for that, and you start to, okay, I will be a better person. I will do less of this if you just take my gifts away. I will work on this gift if you take that gift away but keep this gift. I will not tell anybody as long as I never have to see another spirit. Like we do that. I know a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years has done it as well. Then we go through sadness. Again, not everybody will. If you have a great support system, that's awesome. But a lot of us didn't, and a lot of us don't. And then it's, you're in this horrible place where you don't understand who you are. You don't understand the things that are happening to you. People aren't understanding you. You feel like an outcast. You feel like you might go to hell. You don't know how to control things, and you're just sad, and it's hard. And then eventually, hopefully all of us, I know that many of the kids reading my books won't be at this point yet, but eventually, hopefully we get to a point of acceptance. Alright, you know what, this is my life. This is what's happening to me. This is the experience. These are the experiences I'm going to have. How do we go from here? Like, it is what it is. Let's make the best of it and go on. And again, that is also very similar to the stages of grief. You have shock, denial, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. I love that I found that similar connection, and it worked really well for the book, and it's interesting. I find it interesting that the two are so related. Anyways, in each stage, the chapter goes through each stage. Each stage has submissions from you guys from all over the world. It has my experiences through each stage, and it has important tips and suggestions and hints on how to cope and how to handle each stage and that type of thing. Chapter 5 is the question of sanity. And this was a hard chapter for many reasons. Actually, this is probably the hardest chapter in the whole book for me to put together. You're doing a book for gifted kids to tell them that despite what people tell them, you understand and get them. That they're not crazy, that these things are real. And then I had to throw in a chapter on sanity, and I felt like it was a huge contradiction, but unfortunately it's one that I felt would be irresponsible not to include. It was also difficult on a structural level because one major component of that chapter are interviews with medical professionals, actually from all over the world. I was really happy that I got stuff from other countries as well, from medical professionals. Sorry, my hair was having a moment. But getting a medical professional to even consider that some, obviously not all, because I found some that didn't feel that way, but a great deal of the medical professionals are very black and white, and they believe in science, and they do not believe in paranormal experiences. And if you're having these visions and sensations and hearing things, then there's probably something neurologically wrong with you, or chemically wrong with you, or emotionally wrong with you, and they want to put you in that category and medicate you and institutionalize you and blah blah blah. So finding medical professionals that were open to both sides was a challenge, but I did find them. And the whole point of the chapter is to kind of go over those major illnesses, those major concerns, schizophrenia, insanity, some forms of bipolar disorder, multiple personality disorders, that type of stuff. Also substance abuse issues, drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing. Things that could alter your perspective, things that could make you hear or see things outside of an actual paranormal experience. Just flat out imagination, right? And I had to carefully tread that, but I feel that while most of us who have these experiences are having legitimate experiences, there have to be some of us that have real problems. And it's important, especially for kids, to know what to look for and to consider all options. Obviously, we want to take care of those gifts if they are paranormal based, but we have to take care of anything that may not be paranormal based as well. So it kind of just goes over the different major common alternative reasons for some of the stuff that we experience, and that's up to your parents. It's up to the adults in your life which avenues they want to go through, but it also gave the perspective from the medical professionals how they determine what's medically treatable and what doesn't need to be treated on a medical aspect. So it's definitely an interesting chapter for me to do, and it was interesting to learn. But I think that I did it in a way that is fair, and I think I did it in a way that's informative, but still very, very in favor of us, in favor of us with gifts. There's also a lot of content from other people all over the world, including my experiences with dealing with their issues with concerns about insanity, either for themselves or from other people. Obviously, this is a very vague description, but it's very in depth, and it goes, I mean, even to where we question it. Sometimes I'm like, oh my god, am I losing my mind? Like, I remember when I was younger, I used to be like, maybe I am crazy. But yeah, so that's just what the chapter is. It's the medical aspect, but it's done again in a way that keeps the flow, and there's so many stories from other people that you still have that paranormal base throughout the whole thing. It was a really hard chapter, but I really do like it. Okay, so chapter 6 is called Relationships. It sounds like a vague chapter, but really relationships are vague. You have relationships with, obviously, your partner. If you're in a relationship with anybody, you have relationships with your parents, you have relationships with your siblings, you have relationships with your friends, your peers at school, your co-workers. You have relationships with really anybody that you interact with on a semi or regular basis, and those relationships can vary. You can have very positive relationships at home and then horrible ones at school. You can have great friends in the workplace and nobody gets along with you at home. You don't know. There's a large variety of relationships we have, and in terms of being gifted, that can definitely change from person to person, relationship to relationship. Some people believe, some people don't. Some people are judgmental, some people aren't. Some people are open-minded, some people aren't. And that can drastically change all the dynamics in a relationship. It may seem so simple, like, oh yeah, she says she sees ghosts, I don't believe her, but whatever, the rest of it's fine. No, because then you don't believe a huge chunk of who that person is. You also think they're lying or making things up, and so it may seem minute to them, but it could be a huge, huge factor in that person's relationship, in that person's thought process with the relationship. Especially if we're talking about family or partners or best friends, that type of thing. And then of course sometimes it's really bad, like you're getting picked on at school or that kind of thing. And so this chapter covers everyone's stories, obviously, like the whole chapter, like most of the book does, stories from all over the world, my experience, but it also has a lot of information for each type of relationship, for classmate relationships, for family relationships, for intimate relationships, and how to cope with that and how to deal with that, and both in a positive and a negative aspects. So, it's a kind of a vague title, but it covers a whole lot of information. Okay, chapter 7. This is the chapter I'm currently wrapping up right now. Hopefully it will be done very soon, and it is titled Getting a Grip on It All. And it really is just an acceptance chapter. I talk about facing your fears. A huge problem with paranormal experiences, especially for young kids or for any kids, is fear. And so this chapter goes over fear, facing your fears, handling your fears, coping mechanisms, which again sounds vague, but there is a whole lot of coping mechanisms for all different scenarios: dealing with spirits at school, dealing with spirits at night, learning how to control your feelings when they're not yours, when you're empathing, learning how to handle excess energy. I mean, there's just a whole lot of different things that are covered in the coping mechanism portion of that chapter. There's information on how to learn more. Once you get to a place of acceptance, then you've obviously got to learn about your gifts. You have to learn about your unique gifts. You have to learn about gifts in general. You have to learn how to control it, when appropriate times are to use them, when not to use them. And so it goes over different places, resources that you can go through and find the information you need, and how to keep developing them, that type of stuff. A little bit it goes over like identifying your cosmic role and your passion, figuring out what your gifts are supposed to be for you. For some of you, honestly, your gifts will be there and you'll choose not to do anything with them. For some of you, you're going to go on and do other stuff, but your gifts will still be a part of your life on the side of things. And then some of you are going to have your gifts be your whole world. I mean, that's outside of your friends and family. You're going to make a career out of it, make a life path out of it. And so you're figuring that out, and how that process works, and all that is kind of in that book, in that chapter. because I'm still putting the chapter together, because I'm not quite done with all the content, I don't know everything that's going to be fully in this chapter, but the main gist is how to get to acceptance, why that's important, finding acceptance, and the different paths of getting to that. Again, coping mechanisms are very important, facing your fears are very important, and then how to maintain and manage your gifts, tools, etc. Once you've gotten to a place where you're ready to do that. So it's basically like everything that you've gotten to in this book this far. You know, we've built up the who's, what's, where's, and why's, and now what do we do with it all? Okay, we know what we are and how we're doing it, and we know where we came from, and we know that other people are experiencing these things, and we know how to handle the relationships, we know how to, but okay, so we're here now, where do we go from here? That's kind of what this chapter is about, wrapping it all up for everybody. So this chapter is the last chapter that I'm currently taking submissions for. Chapter 8 has submissions in it, but they're ones that I've already gotten, they're not new additions. So yeah, I'm just wrapping up chapter 7 now. I'm finishing up the content. I'm taking the last bit of submissions that I will be taking for the book, and hopefully we'll have it done very, very soon. So chapter 8 is basically just a compilation of a bunch of miscellaneous stuff that I got from contributors over the whole duration of this project. And it's stuff that I felt was very fitting for the book, very important for people to see and read. But didn't necessarily fit in any sort of specific chapter. And then there's also content that I have that the same thing. I think it's important for the readers, but not necessarily, it didn't actually fit in any particular chapter. So for example, like information on the Ouija board, or near-death experiences, or I don't know, stuff that is still how to communicate with your spirit guides, or understanding your spirit guides, that kind of stuff. So it's stuff that is very relevant, and I still want everyone to get access to, but it didn't necessarily fit into any sort of specific chapter that I already had pre-made. So I'm combining them all in a very, very cohesive way. I'm making sure everything flows well, and that it still goes with the flow of the book, and that it's easy to read and fun to read. But it's just a miscellaneous pieces of it all. That's what it is. It's the miscellaneous pieces of it all. After chapter 8 is the thank you section to my contributors. My book wouldn't have been a fraction of what it is without you guys. So I needed an entire section to say thank you to you guys. That's what that is for. It'll have your guys' names, the names of your guys' work, and the different chapters and pages that you guys can find each of those pieces on. Many of you have submitted multiple pieces, so of course it'll list each of your pieces. Some of you want to be anonymous, and that's fine. It'll say anonymous, and then your location, and the name of your titles, and all that stuff. So I definitely wanted a huge section for that for you guys. Also, the back of every chapter, excluding chapter 1, I believe, I'm pretty sure it's chapter 2 through 8, I have note pages in the back of every chapter. So I've got 2 or 3, I don't recall exactly how many, but they're lined pages, so you can put notes chapter by chapter instead of going through the whole book. It's like, for this chapter I want to remember this and this, or I need to document this and that. So I think that was an interesting twist that I did. I've never seen that in any of my books I've ever read, so hopefully that's helpful as well. The book is around 400 pages, give or take both directions. It's huge, but hopefully I wrote it in a way that is easy to read and flows and feels like you're going through it quickly, and that is fun and informative at the same time. So I wanted everything in this book, and I think that I got nearly everything in there, and of course that means a gigantic book, so be prepared for that. The main thing is that even once this book is done content-wise, which, oh my gosh, I hope is soon. I know you guys are sick of hearing me say that it's going to be soon. I'm sick of saying that it's going to be soon. It has been so long. 5 years is too long for a book. But so much has gone into it, and there's been so many breaks just due to things on my end outside of the paranormal community, and so I just want it done. I want to get it wrapped up. I have another series that I am working on right after, maybe even before I finish, and I'm so excited for it. So excited for it. It is going to be so much fun. It's actually going to be a 50-book series. It is completely different than this one. It's still para-based, obviously, but it's completely different. And I will still have you guys contribute to the book in a totally different way, though. It's not even close to the same way you guys contributed before. It's probably a way that's going to irritate some people. Some people will be really excited about it. Some people are going to throw some shade at it. But I think it's going to be fun, so I'm excited for it. I'm not going to really go into it now. If you've been to my website, you might have some idea of what's coming, but I will post something real soon explaining what the series is going to be about and how it's going to work. But I'm really excited about it. I'm like amped up. I want to finish this book, obviously because I want it out for you guys, but also because I really am itching to get to the second series. I might start it early, I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. Anyways, the sun is moving and my dog is getting antsy, so I need to go play with him for a little bit. But I just wanted to kind of get this out there because I could talk about the book all I want. Oh, it's a book for gifted kids. It's a book for gifted kids. It's almost done. But come on, guys. After 5 years, I would be annoyed and be like, yeah, right, there's no book. What's even in this book? Like, I don't believe you anymore. So I felt now that my channel is kind of starting to grow a little bit. I'm still microscopic, obviously, in the scale of YouTube and even in the paranormal community, but I wanted to at least kind of let you guys know it is real, I promise. Here's what's in it ish. You know, I'm never going to give everything away, but this is the gist of it, and it is almost done. I know I keep saying it, but it's almost done. Just bear with me a little bit longer and I will get this thing out for you guys. He's crazy. Okay, doggy problems are coming, so I've got to go. Grimsby, say hi. Say hi, Grimsby. But yeah, that's why I posted, and hopefully answer some of you guys' questions. Any questions you guys have about the book, or any suggestions or tips you guys have for between now and when it goes out, feel free to comment below. As you guys probably know, I do require approving comments. If you don't know why yet, I should have that video up very soon. And if not, you can check out the end of my demons video to explain why. But even though you have to go through the approval process, I will definitely get everyone's comments approved if they are respectful and insightful. Until next time, guys.